Okay, and we're recording. So I'm Adam Davis. Most of you probably know me. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about project and activity shortcuts. I'm hearing from a lot of folks that logging into each record is pretty cumbersome when you're adding a bunch of youth to a project or an activity. So I'm going to show you a couple shortcuts, and I'm going to give some pretty important updates in 4-H Online as well. Okay, so the archived webinars, I went through and I opened each one and I was able to view them. Those are on the staff site on the enrollment page, which we'll visit in just a moment. If you're having problems watching those webinars, you'll need to download the WebEx software for your computer. And if you continue to have problems, I'll see if I can get them on YouTube. It's a little bit of a process to switch them over, but I checked them all. One of them we had a lot of audio trouble with, so I just deleted that and redid it. I've been out to 6 or 7 associations giving trainings now. I was fortunate enough to visit Lewis County last Friday, and I really enjoy getting out and working closely with folks. So if you feel the need to have an in-person training, let me know. If you can invite a couple neighboring counties, that's even better. But I'm happy to come out to your association, and as my boss says, as long as our travel budget holds up, I'll give you trainings in person. Year-end process, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about that now. You're probably going to hear a lot from me because it is quite a bit different than Access 4-H. I've actually created a little help sheet, and I'll show you that right now. I can't actually send this out because my boss hasn't quite approved of it yet, but the highlights are that in 4-H Online, you can only work in 1 year at a time. So after October 1st, you won't be able to add member enrollments for the 2014-15 program year. That's a big difference from Access 4-H, where you could work in 2 program years at one time. It's just the way the system is set up. We realize that group enrollment paperwork often comes in after the end of the program year. So right now I'm scheduled to keep the group enrollments open for another month. And after that, I would get into some trouble with the rollover of data into the SUNY system. So those are my dates right now. When I share this document, I'll have the dates and the steps we'll need to do at the end of the year. On October 1st, the system will be closed down for a little while, and nothing will change in the system with the exception of the photo release, the acknowledgement of risk, the code of conduct, and a couple other fields. We'll have a field for the 2014-15 program year and 2015-16 program year. What this does is if you selected yes for them in that year, that will roll over into the 2014-15 one, but the 2015-16 field will need to be checked, as those are yearly forms. Any questions on that? Okay, well, that's the year-end process. The custom reports and the state reports, I've been hearing from a lot of folks that they're kind of scrambling to get a report and they can't get it just the way they want it. Just to remind you that I can always log in for you. I can create that report for you, and it will live within your 4-H Online so that you can run it anytime. The reports are dynamic, so the data that's in there today, you'll run the report, it'll get the data for today. The data you enter tomorrow, if you run that report tomorrow, data will be today. Okay, Okay, state reports. If you feel the need for a report that other associations could use, I can create those at the state level, and each county will have access to those. So that's just kind of a convenience. As I kind of compile a list of reports that I'm creating for counties, I see that there is a need for state reports. So if you let me know what those are, I'll be happy to create those in 4-H Online. They'll be available to every association in 4-H Online. I'm getting a lot of questions on the project list, both in 4-H Online and from a policy perspective. So let me share with you a couple of things. So on the enrollment page that I mentioned before that has all the webinars, as well as the PowerPoints that I use, there's this document. It's a reporting procedures document that was created by the state 4-H staff, and this kind of streamlines the project naming conventions. And you're welcome to give feedback on this document, but I think on about page 6 or so, it does give the list of state projects that are currently in use. These were developed by our state specialists. I realize it's a long document, but there's a lot of good information in there, especially for newer folks. And as you see, the project areas are here. Now, if you want this in another version, you can jump right into 4-H Online, go to your reports, and under your quick exports, you can scroll all the way to the bottom, and there's a project list. Export.
Hi. Am I driving the kids to STEM camp, or?
I have a chaperone going.
Okay.
So, but right now we'll need 2 vehicles.
Oh, you will need 2 vehicles? Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Unless somebody doesn't want to go.
Linda, can you mute your microphone?
Oops. Sorry.
I'm glad to hear that you have 2 chaperones going now. So where I was pointing to was a project listing with the aliases. And this is a kind of a handy report because it shows you what I just showed you, and these will line up with what is in that reporting guidelines document. It doesn't look very pretty in a WebEx, but it's a quick report you can generate from 4-H Online as well. Okay, let me jump back to my PowerPoint. Okay, any questions up until now? Okay, so today I'd like to talk about, if I can get out of here. Adding projects and activities to youth records without having to necessarily log into each record. So activities are a little easier than projects. Probably if you were to add these by club, I would go to your search screen. If you're not going to filter them by anything, you don't need to have any filters. You might want to do just youth because you're only entering youth projects. That'll give you fewer records to sort through. But you can clear any filters you have. And for adding an activity, if you were to do it by club, you can sort by the club, and that way you have a better way of looking at these youth. So if I were to add, let's say, the 4 members from the Crazy 4 Canines, I would just select their records and recall that we're adding an activity now. So what I've done is I've just flagged those records A good idea is to clear all your flags first and then flag the ones you just want to add to the activity. Now, once they're flagged, you can go ahead and add flags. You'll see here we have add to an activity, a group, an award, or a training. This is not an option for projects, which is a little unfortunate because the bulk of what 4-Hers do is projects, but I'll show you my fastest way to add projects as well. Once we select add activity, it's going to bring up the youth that you've checked, and it's going to ask you to pick the name of the activity. If these were youth from the club that attended the New York Dairy Discovery, you'd select that project. You'll see who's already in that activity in your county, and then you just add the members to the activity. And now that activity will show up on each youth's record that you selected. So that's pretty quick for activities. Any questions on that? Okay. Projects are a little more complicated since we can't batch add them. But first I'll clear my flags. And the fastest way I found to do this is, again, to sort by the club because that's the way I think of member records. You can sort by any one of these fields. You can sort by the name, inactive, or whatever you'd like. So for these three, we've got some DC teen ambassadors, and we'll say that we want to add these to a project. What I do is I flag these, even though I'm not necessarily using that flag, I'm using it for my own purposes for organization. Once I've got them flagged, I'll just click on the first name, click on the project, and it'll bring up a project screen where I can add a project to just that youth's record. It's going to give you the current 4-H year. It's going to, if they're in different clubs, you'll pick the club that project is associated with. You can get the years and project from here, and you can pick which club which project you want to add these folks to. And the project listing comes up here. One I'd like to demonstrate is automotive. Now you saw that we had two automotives. We had automotive and automotive safety. So jumping back to our project list, you'll see that automotive, if you were to print out the report that I showed you before, automotive itself, like working on cars, is a STEM activity, where automotive safety is a different project.
Hello.
It's actually in the healthy lifestyle section. Is there a question?
She wants to adopt chickens.
Melanie, can you mute your microphone as well? Thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and add this youth to the automotive project. Once we click Add Project, that project is now on the youth's record. Now I can just click back. I'll close out the screen for Mary Bagley. I've still got my checks, but I'm just going to uncheck her because I've added her. So I'm just using those checks for my own use, and I can go right through and add them each to the automotive project. And this isn't incredibly fast, but it's a lot faster than adding them, logging into each record and adding the project. Once I add the project to the second person, I'm just going to click back, drop that box, uncheck this Mary. She's been added. Just go to Abby, Projects, add the year, her club, and the state project, which we determined as automotive. Now I'll click back, close her out, uncheck her, or you could check them if you'd like to keep track of it that way. That's just kind of my little way of tracking. Now that we've added them to the projects, we can just click here and we'll just make a quick check. We're going to need to remove this filter. It looks like I had a filter in there. But now that we have our projects up, we have the automotive selected as our filter, and we can determine that indeed we've added these youth to the project. Unfortunately, their club doesn't show up on the screen, but if you want to check who you have in a project, you can do it from this screen. This screen is interesting because it has this brand new feature that was put in March. And what this does is it allows you to mark projects as complete. Some counties may want to use this to track project completion. What I'm concerned about is that they're enrolled in the projects. Once they're enrolled in the project, that will count on your ES-237. Project completion is for your convenience to use if you'd like to. It doesn't count on the ES-237. It's kind of a record-keeping tool that they put in there for states that are adamant about tracking project completion. And that's all I have for today, so now I'll open it up for questions. Anyone at all?
Adam, I had a question. We've been using the activities to record anybody that's come to a workshop. And we always seem to get some parents at workshops who aren't necessarily enrolled volunteers, and occasionally we'll get an extra youth who's not an enrolled member as well. Is there a good way to keep track of those numbers?
Usually a workshop would be a group enrollment, so I would create a group enrollment for those because they do count on your ES-237, whether they're enrolled or not. The group enrollment is for non-enrolled people attending your 4-H events.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for joining me this morning. And if you have any other questions, you can always shoot me an email or give me a call. Hopefully I've showed you a shortcut that'll save you a little time.